This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Rabanzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Hey there, loyal listeners. Would you like to help other independent musicians find this podcast? Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast service. It really helps. Would you like to support the podcast? Join the Unstarving Musician community. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. If you're an independent musician, you'll be glad you joined because I share tips and lessons you can use in your music journey. And this isn't just coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician. It also comes from the hundreds of other musicians and songwriters I've talked to as part of the Unstarving Musician Project, including those I've interviewed for this podcast. And it's all free, just for being part of the community. Another way to support the podcast is to pick up a copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. You can get your very own paperback or Kindle version on Amazon, and you can find it just about anywhere fine ebooks are sold. Have you heard of Bandzoogle? They've come up on this podcast several times. Many of my guests use it to power their artist websites. From garage bands to Grammy winners, Bandzoogle powers websites for tons of musicians around the world. Their simple step-by-step system will get you online in minutes. Lots of mobile-friendly templates you can use to customize your design and content. It's built by musicians for musicians. Check out all the features Bandzoogle has. A merch and download store to sell music and merch commission-free right on your website. A tour calendar to promote your shows and sell tickets commission-free. Mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send professional-looking emails and newsletters. Integrations to pull in content from all of your socials, including Twitter, Instagram, and SoundCloud. And, very important here, live support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Go to bandzoogle.com to start your 30-day free trial. Use the promo code RABONZO to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code RABONZO to build your artist website today. Today is my birthday. I don't feel old. I do feel like celebrating. I got a big trip coming up soon. Actually, today, as you're hearing this, I'm going to Panama City to celebrate it up. But the big trip comes next week, in fact. I will be celebrating 25 years of marriage to my loving wife. She and I met the old-fashioned way at a bar. Who knew things like that could last 25 years? I'm one lucky SLB, I tell you. Well, my guest for this episode is Daniel Stidham, guitarist and songwriter with hard rock band Raid the Quarry. That's right, I said hard rock band. I love it. Or maybe I should say modern rock. It's really modern rock. That's what the kids are calling it, or the genreification people, whoever they are. Raid the Quarry is based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. They just released a new album, their first full-length album. It's called Temporary Cemetery. You, my lucky listener, will hear a track called Ghost Town from that very LP. You're also going to hear me and Daniel talk about things like strategies for releasing a full album versus an EP and balancing the advice of others. Developing confidence in your own work while being open to feedback. The business of making money as a band. Competing for listener time and attention amidst changing music trends and all that other stuff that's distracting people from modern rock greatness. Strategic planning for expanding an audience, both in person and online. This was another great conversation, thanks to my guest. I did okay. I did. All right, here's me and Daniel Stidham of Raid the Quarry. I wanted to start out by asking you about Temporary Cemetery, the forthcoming album that you're about to release. I guess it's sort of out in the wild now. But you have a release party?
Yeah, we released it technically on the 26th of March.
Ah, cool. And I see that you have a party coming up in the future, and it's going to be future me talking because this will come out after that. But as we're recording, you have one that's going to happen on the 12th of of April. But tell me about, was there anything behind doing a full-length album as opposed to your last release, which was an EP? What's the scoop on that?
Yeah, I mean, so we got together, I think probably last year, and talked about what our strategy was going to be, and we were advised to do, a number of singles, and drop a single and promote that, and then drop another single and promote that, because it's a single economy more now, with everybody just listening to the Spotify playlist or downloading something off of a single off iTunes or something. So that was kind of where we started. But as we talked about it, we really got the feeling in the band that everybody really wanted to do an album, because we're a rock band, and that's been kind of the format since the Beatles. It has been, we really want to do a full album. You want to be able to people kind of sink into, 45 minutes of music that kind of and goes together. And so based on, what we had in the band and what we wanted to do, we had been playing a lot of these songs live anyway. Like, a lot of them were already, written and everything. So we just decided, well, if we're going to go in the studio, we may as well do it upright and just make something that would be kind of this more significant work that we could, really be proud of.
May I ask, when you say you're being advised, and I can kind of imagine where that comes from all different directions, but do you guys have a primary source or go-to or group or person that you listen to on these matters? What was that? Where did that come from?
We had a friend of mine who was doing like booking and kind of some promotion and stuff for us, and she was had been used to working with bands and everything, and so kind of had her finger on the pulse of what was going on. And so we were kind of consulting with her. She's since kind of gotten out of that, and so we just ended up making some of our own decisions. But I mean, I appreciated her advice. I don't think it was bad advice. And I think that we would maybe even still do, singles and stuff in the future. But this was, I think, the right time to do the record. Yeah.
And it makes sense. And I'm a fan of the hard rock, and I'm kind of excited to talk to you today because you're in a band, and I get a lot of wonderful artists on here, but a lot of them are songwriters, and they might have a band or they work with various ensembles and do it quite well. But a lot of them, to me, they don't have a band, and I've just been a band guy all my life, and a floating one too as a drummer. But so that is very exciting for me. You guys are based in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, or maybe Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah, Raleigh
proper. Yeah. Okay, what's the music scene like there?
It's pretty good. I see there's a lot of talent in this area, and I mean, now that I'm kind of plugged into it, I could probably go to shows just about every night of the week if I wanted to. There's maybe not as much. I always feel like there's not as many bands doing what we do as far as like that particular brand of hard rock, but there is a lot of good music and in various genres, a lot of folk and alt country and stuff, but also like indie and some all different stripes.
That's cool. I was going to ask this as a kind of an icebreaker before I punch the proverbial record button, but I'm curious. Always curious for some reason with, especially with rock bands. What do you listen to lately, and are the tastes within the band, do they vary a lot?
It's funny. I feel like I've been listening to this record we just made for like the last 10 months. It's been percolating. It's been, we got to give the mixes back and the masters, and I feel like I've been in a little bit of a rut, honestly. The last record that I really fell in love with was Dissonance by a band called Hands Like Houses out of Australia. They're a post-hardcore outfit. That record just lived in my car for a long time. And actually, I just discovered a band the other day called, I'm going to mess up the name of it. I'm going to look it up. I'm at my computer.
That's all right. Yeah. If you think of it in a minute. And what about the rest of the guys? Are they, do they listen to kind of the similar genres that you do, or are you guys all over the place as a band, taste-wise?
I think somewhat similar. Aaron, the bass player, and I kind of got together based on some bands that we had in common. The Classic Crime, we kind of came out of like a Christian rock background. So it was like some of the people that were on Tooth and Nail for a while, that kind of, emo and some of that stuff. And then, classic rock, we have some big Chili Peppers fans in the band. Brian, the guitar player, is really into Queens of the Stone Age. We all like, some of the Foo Fighters and things like that. So I think there's definitely some overlap. We're all kind of, in that rock tradition.
Cool. And what is the, we're going to feature a track at the end of our conversation called Ghost Town that you so graciously gave to me and agreed to feature in the episode. What's the story behind that track?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite, maybe favorite track on the album. That's one that kind of, I think, I was talking to you a little bit about the Hands Like House. I feel like I was listening to all of this post-hardcore, and some of the maybe rhythmic stuff in there was kind of an extension of some of the things I was listening to there. But kind of just thinking about when I moved to Raleigh from a small town and, spent some time kind of not really knowing anybody. And then as you kind of go to the same places and you start seeing the same faces, it's actually kind of a small town, and there's a lot of, connections that you make, and everybody kind of goes, you start seeing the same people pop up. And I kind of got to the point where I was thinking that you have a certain amount of potential in the city or in a place. And as you experience that, and as you make choices, and maybe as you meet people, some of that potential goes away, becomes unusable, becomes entropy, becomes sometimes maybe there's falling off that happen and breakups, and so it's a little bit abstract, I guess, but the idea kind of moving on and of wanting to, start anew in certain ways. And I think that ended up becoming a theme maybe on several of the songs on the record, are kind of about moving on from a place of difficulty or a place of loss onto the hope on the horizon. And so I think this is a song that just kind of slots into that.
What's the small town you're from?
Well, it's outside of Charleston, West Virginia. I don't know how familiar you are with the area, but it's a little West Virginia suburb.
Does it have a name?
Yeah. No, Scott Depot. Most people don't know, so I usually don't say, but.
No, just curious. So I was turned on to you guys by Jamie Curry at Crimson Moon Records. How'd you hook up with Jamie?
Crimson Moon recorded the album. So her boyfriend Ryan is the engineer who worked with us on the record. I should say, how'd you hook up with Crimson Moon then? Aaron, our bass player, and Ryan were friends. I think they had a class together or something. So they knew each other, and he told us that he had he was doing the studio. So we started talking to him about doing our next record. That's cool. I ask about it because I run across people working with labels, and often I find them, and I guess that's not so unusual, but Jamie had reached out on your behalf, and in fact, you and I were talking about an earlier interview I had today, same deal, not different person, but a PR rep reached out on their behalf. I thought it was funny. I got both of you came to me around the same time, and I thought I must have got on somebody's list or something. I'm getting all these contacts from. I gotten 3 at once from different PR people, kind of East Coastish, but I think it may have just been coincidence. I'm not sure, or maybe I had a little peek in listenership that week. I suppose I should look at my stats more, but see what's going on. Yeah, figure that out. Yeah, so Jamie's been great, and because I'm the guy who is artistically minded. I like to write and create, and I'm not really that good at all the marketing and stuff. And so I really felt like I needed somebody to help us out. And so she's come up with some ways to help us promote this new album. So we were appreciative of that. That's cool. Are any of the other guys, because I know in working with bands in the past and
currently that, you get some guys that are pretty marketing minded. So if you're lucky, there's more than two of you in the band that are doing that, and some that just aren't. But are any of the other guys kind of marketing or business minded at all?
Yeah, no, our bass player Aaron actually had just got a business degree very recently, so he's been helping me strategize and come up with things to do to kind of promote the band to see where we can go.
That's cool. That's very could be very handy.
Yeah, it's nice to have somebody with that that aptitude, because I don't have it.
Somebody's got to have it. So you do have the upcoming release party. Did you guys do that for a similar type of thing for Priority One? And I'm asking, thinking that others might appreciate whatever you guys are conjuring up for your own release party, maybe some ideas they get. But are you doing anything differently than you did for your 2016 Priority One EP in terms of drawing attention to it?
A little bit. I mean, so I guess just saying, we got Jamie on board to kind of reach out to some different outlets. And, this is probably the third podcast interview that we've done in the last couple of weeks. And we have, had a couple of blogs that have done reviews of the record. And so we've just been trying to generate some, a little bit of buzz. And we also did a music video, our first for the first single from the album called Patience, Patience. And so this was all kind of planned to lead up, to the release and get people aware that it was coming out and get people interested. The music video incorporated several of our friends that helped us to do it. It was one we kind of did on the cheap, but some of our friends are in it. And so then, you say, okay, we're dropping this video, y'all are in it, share with your friends, get people's eyes on it. So we kind of did all that leading up to the release, which, I think is going to be, more significant. I think we're going to have more people come out just because there's more buzz around it. Cool.
Well, now that we're connected, and I suppose I should run this by Jamie, and I'm going to kind of miss the party, so to speak, in terms of the the date that this particular episode publishes. But leading up to it, I think it would be cool to mention it. So if you or Jamie want to float things at me that are happening either on social or things I can email out or whatever, let me know. I'd love to be part of helping spread the word. I think that's cool.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, we can maybe chat about that at the end, just so I know what you're talking about. But that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like you guys are pretty collaborative as a band. Is that accurate? And I mean that in terms of the way your music comes together, possibly the composition, arrangements, all that stuff.
It's becoming more that way. When we started, it was kind of, okay, Dan writes songs and then teaches everybody how to play them. And with Brian coming on and him, writing songs that he's introducing to the group, and us, trying to jam a little bit and see what comes out, it has become more collaborative. It has become to the point where maybe I don't have to finish as much before I bring it to the band and say, here's what I've got, let's start working on it. Because we kind of know what now people's strengths are and have an idea of what they're going to bring to the table. I'm a bad co-writer. I was caught to that. I've never really been able to, kind of sit down with somebody and with a guitar and a notebook and make anything happen. I'm the kind of person who kind of goes into my little cave and then comes out with something. So usually either Brian or I brings, a basic song idea, concept, skeleton, whatever, to the group. But, I'm like, okay, I can't play drums. So drummer, you're going to have to figure out how this works, and so on and so forth.
Do you feel like you're becoming a bit more of a co-writer now that the process has evolved into that?
I mean, not necessarily. Like everything we've done so far, like one person is the lyricist. Like it's either me or it's Brian. And so as far as that goes, I think that's still kind of the same. I've never figured out how to write lyrics with someone really. But so again, as far as the music part is concerned, I would say it's becoming more that way. And I'm learning how to speak drum. So I can tell people you probably appreciate that. Like instead of just me saying, hey, how about dum, I could say, well, maybe we could have a 16th on the hi-hat here or something. So I could being a little bit more communicative on that front.
I try and impress my friends once in a while by throwing out some theory terms, like I know what I'm doing. But I'm like I often feel like I've gotten the impression that Ringo Starr was. I had read or heard some interview with George Harrison talking about this new song he had, and I forget the complicated time signature it's in, but it's Here Comes the Sun, and Ringo saying, okay, just play it for me. And he was talking about how he comes into that song. So yeah, I discovered at that moment, the guy wasn't really strong in theory, at least back then. But it is nice to know that language, and I'm actually a late in life theory learner. It gives me something else to do to work on, to stretch my brain on. So it's kind of fun and certainly helpful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So good for you for working on that. I was going to ask you about this. This was kind of like a stretch. I call it a stretch question. I mean to say that something wasn't really on the top of my list to ask. I'm like, if I run out of stuff to talk about, I'll ask this. But I kind of want to ask now because you brought it up, and that was.
Now I'm curious. Yeah.
Well, it was just on songwriting. So does this that may be a horrible question to ask, but it was going to be, do you by chance, and I knew it would be a little weird. To me, it was weird because you're a hard rock band guy, and I just don't envision it, but I don't know. But I'll just be curious to hear your thoughts on it all. And that is, do you? I know the answer, but I'm going to tell you what I was going to ask and just let you respond. Okay. That is, now you're really curious. Do you do songwriting groups or regular co-writes? I know you know the answer to that, but what?
Do I do? No, I
go ahead.
Do I do regular co-writes? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you probably surmised the answer is no. I've done I think I went to a group before where some different people played something that they'd written and got some feedback from the group, and just like helpful or whatever, in case people had any ideas. But no, not really. There's maybe some groups out there. I don't know. I guess I trust myself with that. Yeah.
And I knew that the answer was obviously no. I was just kind of curious what that would bring up in terms of familiarity with them or past experience. So that's cool. I do wonder, I don't know. It's just one of the things that people, I suppose, one of the many things people can look to if they run into the quote unquote, writer's block or creative block. It seems like an interesting, helpful tool. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I would like to do a co-write, and it just seems like it, usually if I try to start something with somebody that I know, it never really gets off the ground. I don't know. I think it's hard to find somebody maybe that has a similar enough approach to you to where you can find synergy as opposed to just, well, I would do this.
What makes you interested in doing them, given that you have the confidence or trust that you have in yourself? What makes you interested?
Well, because over the years, I've been writing songs for a long time now, probably, I don't know, 15 or more years. And so I feel like I can write a song if I really want to, but just because I can write a song doesn't mean that I have all the answers, obviously. And it doesn't mean that I couldn't benefit from somebody else's style or somebody else's input. Because, you can find yourself as a musician kind of just retreading the same familiar paths in some way. And you might not even be aware of your own patterns. And I think it's good to have a personal style, but there's a point where, you could say, well, somebody else would bring something totally unpredictable to this, and that would be exciting and would produce something that was fresh. And so maybe we'll still get to the point where I can do a co-write with a friend or something, and, maybe it would produce unpredictable results. Yeah.
I mean, I have no experience with it other than my conversations here on the podcast, but I would think, like so many other things, it just takes practice, right? And maybe in doing it in the first times, if you feel like you're not great at it, possibly also a matter of hooking up with someone who is experienced at it, who can kind of give you some pointers, or maybe just walk you through and sort of demonstrate the possibilities or the ease that does exist there. So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
I think more than anything, it takes confidence. You've got to be able to put something forward that's not fully formed and not be afraid of, having it shot down. I think that's one of the big things.
Yeah.
We musicians are a notoriously sensitive lot.
That's true. I have a favorite, follow-up question I send out, and it's about the voices in your head, and self-doubt, and it's always, I get a wide range of responses, and some of them are quite fun because people just fess up right away to, almost when it comes up, everyone's pretty forthcoming about that. Yeah, it's a thing. It's there all the time.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it definitely is.
So, and on, I'm kind of feeling like, given this little thought, because we've talked a tiny bit about business, that my thought is that the business of music for hard rock bands that aren't just huge, doesn't matter, I guess, but the business of making money for rock bands is a little more challenging depending on the individuals in there too, because like, for example, you could be just completely content as a career musician doing a multitude of things, including this hard rock band. And I don't know if there's anyone like that within the band that does any other music related projects, but how do you, and I don't even know, I haven't even asked, if you guys are all full-time at this, or do you have a mix of full-time and people with guys with day jobs in the band? But what's the, how is the whole business of making money conversation going in the band, and how are you feeling about where it's at?
Yeah, I mean, we're all weekend warriors. Everybody's got a job. Nobody's making money at this point. It's a passion project. I mean, obviously, I would like it if that were the case, but it's just, it's difficult. As I'm sure you well know, this is kind of your thing, right? Like, you're trying to help people figure out how to, do what they do better and make money at it, right? So
through all of you, and through all of you guys too. I mean, I certainly have some opinions about it, but it's through all of you guys. But continue, please.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, first of all, as I'm sure you're aware, hard rock is not exactly in vogue right now. So that's one thing. And then, just trying to, capture people's interest. And when you're playing local shows, you're getting a cut at the door, and, there's just so much, I don't know, I guess competition for people's time and for their attention. The only thing we really make money on, honestly, is merchandise. If we sell T-shirts or CDs at a show, we probably make as much money doing that as we made on the door. But yeah, I mean, we're not in a place where anybody's, we'll never probably pay back what we paid to the studio for this record. So it's kind of like, we're doing this because it's something that we love, that we really believe in, that we can be proud of, and we'll have, 20 years from now and be able to say, yeah, we made this. I mean, I would like for it to be a point where we could actually subsist, and it would be self-perpetuating. I don't know if it'll get there. You kind of have to be realistic about these things.
Sure. Do you guys have pictures of the merch that you have on Instagram or anywhere?
Oh, sure. I'm sure there's some shirts and things on the Instagram feed.
I would like to see that. I'll have to go looking for that. And
email you some if you want.
Okay. Do you guys explore that a lot? I mean, because I was talking, it's funny. I was talking to this couple that's based in Austin, and they've been at it for a while. They're writing and recording like mad, and they have a band, and really good. And I'm talking to them, about different ways about making money, and asking if they've explored and maybe the same thing for you to think about or comment on too, but explore the whole. I always drop the name Patreon. Those guys get a plug for me, and I just really mean it in terms of the model. It seems to be the catch-all model for whether you're actually using Patreon or just doing it on your own website, of getting that type of support. And they were like, you know what, we both have day jobs, and it's like we have a very supportive family. The music's great for us. We love it, but we're not even worried about money, from the music, which was very, I had to imagine that in that moment that they were telling me that was a very, it brings about a feeling of freedom, right? Creative freedom, and just,
Right.
not having to worry about, and I should mention who they are, while I'm sitting here talking about them, but oh man, look at me having one of those moments where I can't remember who I've talked to.
Well, just like me earlier with that band. So
yeah. They're called The Waters, and they were featured in a fairly recent episode. So I bring all that up just to say, or to ask if that's kind of a thing for you guys, or do you have like the majority? You guys are a 4-piece, right?
We're a 4-piece, yeah.
Yeah. Are like, is everybody kind of like, yeah, this would be great if we could just do this full time?
Yeah, well, I think that's also a subject of some, I think it's one of the challenges, obviously, of being a local band and thinking about the prospect of trying to, break out of that, is that, you have obviously people with jobs that they depend on. And, if you want to go out and do, a 2-week tour, that's, that's, potentially the prospect of, okay, how do we make that happen with these folks? Do we have to get, fill-ins and that sort of thing? And, so there's all kinds of priorities that are involved in that. And so I think definitely there are, just practical issues, whether that would happen or not. So we'd probably start with, and that's the next thing we really want to do, is just kind of do like regional gigs, try to get out of town a little bit and get in front of some new faces and see how that goes. And, if that's something that feels like it's going to push on to the next thing.
And does that kind of, I'm assuming that seems like the next logical step. Do you guys ever kick around other ideas for generating revenue, or just not there yet?
I mean, again, I'm not the one with the business major, but
yeah, you said that. Yeah. You said that.
Yeah, I mean, I know some bands that do Patreon, and maybe if we did another record, maybe we try to Indiegogo it or something. But I think it's just hard because right now most of our quote unquote fans are really our friends and family, and you only have so much that you want to ask them for money. Like, I don't know, it's a hard thing, because you say, okay, I'm producing this art. This is my time and my creativity and my passion, and like, it's worth something. But at the same time, so I don't feel bad about saying, hey, pay $10 for this CD, because like it's worth that. But at the same time, it's like, it's hard to try to say, okay, these few people that we have around us that are supporting us, like, and then now, like, you want you to fund this thing that we're doing. So it's a tough line to walk.
Yeah, again, not really knowing. It sort of sounds like you guys are, unlike the Waters, is a totally an open topic for you to explore in the coming year or something. The topic of generating revenue as a band, and obviously, I mean, they those guys, that couple, they definitely want to get noticed, and they are getting noticed. And I heard them at one point say, it's always can be tough, when you see someone else, gets the agent or the PR or whatever, and, suddenly great things are happening for them. But it sounds like you guys are, it's sort of maybe one of many things on the table. And I guess I was going to say, I'm already losing my train of thought on this whole thread I'm going on, but I think what I was going to say is that I think you do quite well in the realm of doing something like an Indiegogo or a Patreon like thing, because there are people out there that love what you're doing, and some beyond your friends and family, and you're going to find, as time goes on, you'll continue finding these super fans, particularly with the release of your new album and the buzz that's getting drummed up for it, and they want to help you. So I would just say to you,
I hope that's true.
Yeah. I would just say to you, if you have any reservations about it, just remember that there are people that, and it may be a small number of them, it may be a surprisingly bigger number than you think, but there are people out there that are going to love what you're doing, and they just want to support you, and for different reasons. Sometimes it's all about your music, but if you guys keep putting yourselves out there, sometimes it's just because of who you are, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Yeah. So
Sure. Well, obviously, I obviously really believe in what we're doing, and I think the album is good. I think the music is good. I think it's getting better, and so I think that there are legitimately certainly people out there that would say, "Oh, hey, this is something that we've been wanting to hear, and would want to hear more of it." So sometimes it sounds, I guess, maybe it's just finding out who those people are.
yeah, exactly. So on touring, are you have you guys done any short tours, or are you predominantly just playing locally at this point?
Yeah, we really haven't done anything touring wise. We pretty much hung out in the area.
Yeah, I would imagine that's hard, and especially with four of you. And I mentioned I talked a lot of sort of more into solo artists, and because they will, I assume because they will have a variation of ensembles that they might be able to say, okay, I'll take some time off of work, off my day job if they happen to have one, and they can put together an ensemble that isn't necessarily, they may be full-time guys, so they can kind of swing that a little easier sometimes.
There's a conversation too that's being had. Like, if we have X number of band members who can't make a date, can we get fill-ins to help with that? And I've filled in on guitar for other people's bands, so I know there's people out there that are willing to do it. It's just a matter of getting your people together.
Yeah, and I guess that can be. I'm as a drummer, like a total fill-in guy, and I came to realize, with some of the bands that I work with, it's like, they just, this is a unit. They're not into that. They don't want to play that bad, and they don't want to see the band out playing that bad. That if they're not going to be at the shows, but certainly a number of them that I've worked with are all about it. If someone can't make it, plug someone in. But I think it's kind of tough. With you guys being the type of music that you are doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard too because we're not Dan Stidham and the X's. We're Ray the Quarry. So if everybody else can't do it, I can do the show. I can't really just show up with an acoustic guitar and play songs because that's not what people signed up for.
Yeah. Unless they did.
Unless they did. Yeah.
Totally. And how long has the core unit of the band been together? The four of you?
At least probably, 3 or 4 years now. Because Trey's been with us since before Trey the drummer has been with us since obviously before we recorded Priority 1 in 2016. So probably 4-ish, 3.5 years at least. Yeah,
cool. As far as the music release strategy goes and having to, doing the full length album this time, is there any inclination as to how the next one will be? Will you do that again? Or have you even talked about it, or will you wait and see how it goes and maybe just play out the coming year a little differently, just depending on what everyone's up for?
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll just have to see how it goes. And I've been spending so much of my energy just working on the release of this album and everything that accompanies that. I really haven't even had time to, write anything. We're just now probably getting to the point once we do this release show where we'll have time to start, writing and arranging new things as a band and see what we're excited about at that point. My priority probably at this point will be, again, doing like a small tour, getting us out of the Triangle in North Carolina, and see if we're able to do that. And maybe, we really wanted to do a music video for one of the other songs. We didn't have the money to do it. The one we did, we put together, with basically, paste and popsicle sticks. So we'd like to do that and see if we can keep the energy going from this record for a little bit.
There's an interesting, a little while ago, I'm on my soapbox, I guess, talking about the people who are going to love what you do and support you. But there's an interesting conversation I had that you can find on the podcast with a guy named Ezra Van Seal. He's the only guy named Ezra I've had on the podcast, but he's made some really great videos. And so he has a band, but he's more of the songwriter variety, and so he does a lot of solo stuff and probably has an ever-changing ensemble. But anyway, we get into some pretty interesting discussion about how he pulls together 20 people to make a video. It might be worth checking out. And the thing that struck me, because I'm like, where's he getting the money to get together 20 people, and who's paid, and basically one person's being paid and everyone else is volunteer, which brought me to the question of, well, how do you do that? So anyway, for you and anyone else listening who might be in a similar, I wouldn't call it a quandary yet, but you're thinking about it. It's like, how do we get the funds for the next one? It's interesting.
Sure.
Interesting conversation, and if it's interesting enough, if you ever want to talk to him, let me know. So he's
sounds worth listening to for sure.
Great guy based in Dallas. I think that would be great. I would love to see. I know I can catch a little bit probably on your Facebook or Instagram, but I'd love to see some footage you guys playing live that were done for videos, which I guess would really just be sort of mocking it up. But I think that would be really cool. Would be very cool.
Yeah, the video that we did was a lyric video, and it was kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen those Draw Your Life videos on YouTube where, they had people draw something and speed it up. So we did that essentially and had a bunch of our friends do different like calligraphy and stuff and just match that up to the music. So there's not really any footage of us playing. It's just the lyrics up there through the video. And it turned out actually, I think, really fun. I haven't really seen anything quite like it, honestly, which was, I think, the goal versus just doing, the usual like text shows up on the screen type of thing. So I'd like to do one that has actual acting and live action stuff in it.
Yeah. I watched it. I liked it because I'm like, oh, this is cool because it's not your usual lyric video, and people really get into those about seeing the lyrics on, hearing the song and stuff through the lyrics. So I thought it was a cool idea, brilliant idea. And kudos to you guys for doing something that apparently was, within the budget, quote unquote.
Yeah. Well, and then, there we go. We got 13, 14 of our friends to show up, and we paid them in beer and pizza. And so they were happy to help.
Exactly. So you mentioned that the majority of your time lately has been focused on the release of the album and the things that have been going on around it. And I'm assuming continues as you have a release party coming and maybe some other things. Can you talk a little bit about the specific activities that you've been devoting your time to, and maybe some of the things that, others in the band are doing, or someone, other people are doing?
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like a lot, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, what have we actually done? Aaron and I had a kind of a strategy meeting that ended up with us drawing a lot of things on a piece of paper to try to talk about, what are we doing with Instagram? What is our strategy there? Like I said, we had to put the video together because we did it ourselves. That was all pretty much he and I organizing all of that, finding a time, getting everybody involved. So that was a big one. I completely redid the website, created an EPK for Jamie to send out to people, and, coordinated with her on, as far as, what songs are people going to play if we get local radio play. And, again, doing like this podcast and other podcasts that we've done, looking at new merchandise that we want to add to the table, reaching out to people for, actually determine when the show is going to be, where it's going to be, who's going to play on it. So there's just a ton of stuff. I'm a graphic designer, and so I pretty much do all of the visual stuff for the band, with the exception of a couple of things. My brother designed the album cover, but then I have to design all the stuff for the digipack, because we're going to do some physical CDs. So that had to be done, had to be sent off, and so there's a lot actually to it when you start getting into it and finding time, throughout the week to make those things happen. Yeah, and
good job on the artwork. Good job on the website. I know you had firsthand in that. You said. Great job on having, somebody do some photos for you guys. So yeah, I can see a ton of work.
Yeah. So like I said, I know you're familiar with this because you're, walking with artists that are going through these things, but like for anybody on the outside, we think, oh, just, even it's shocking how much time just doing an Instagram post takes up, or, getting your hashtags and, I don't know, like I wanted to do one of those things where you take up, you make your album cover out of 9 pictures on Instagram and you put it up there so it's nice and big, and, you have to make each of those photos separately. It's just, all that stuff takes time and energy and thought.
Yeah, like how do I do that? No, and I see that you successfully pulled it off. It looks pretty cool. You got some stuff kind of sprinkled in there, so good job. Yeah, that's total the total DIY. I know. I'm going through the same thing. I'm actually in the process of getting some help because I've reached the point of overwhelm with various things I'm working on, and the podcast is very there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but when you're trying to do it right, you spend a lot of time on it if you don't have any help. And anyway, but I feel for you and completely appreciate it. So, but good job.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to do a podcast someday. I can't take that on right now, but hey, that sounds like fun. Yeah,
just be on somebody else's, or maybe find someone who wants to have like a guest host or something, and learn some stuff along the way. It can be crazy time consuming, but I do think it would be a great add to what you guys are doing if the bandwidth ever presents itself. So, well, man, I very much enjoyed learning about what you guys are doing and about the band. I was enjoying the music today. I was telling my wife I'm interviewing 2 people on completely opposite ends of the music spectrum. I had someone who's in kind of electronic pop, but with some textures of blues and things in there, and a hard rock band. Yeah. And I think she'll actually like both, but she's got a thing for hard rock, and it's funny too because she really loves 80s music like The Cure and things like that, and then put on some Rage or something like that, Rage Against the Machine or something like that, and she's all into it as well. So I think she'll dig this. So it looks like tell me if I should even bother mentioning anything else, because your main source of finding everything about the band is raidthequarry.com, and I see that all your socials are nicely linked there on the website, and you guys are clearly building your presence on Instagram and Facebook, and hopefully YouTube soon.
Yeah, our bass player's been doing a series that he calls Raid the Creamery, where he visits different ice cream shops in the area, and it's like kind of like his version of Hot Ones. So that's showing up on YouTube. But you can find everything from raidthequarry.com. All of our socials are there. All the links to listen to the album and everything are there. All the lyrics are there. So that's a good place to start if you think you're interested.
Cool. And I'll just mention it one last time that if you're listening to this, are going to hear a track from the latest album called Ghost Town. The latest album is Temporary Cemetery, all by Raid the Quarry. Daniel, thanks for coming on, and be sure to tell your guitarist or any of the other guys that are interested, and I'd love to talk to them on the podcast as well. And man, it's been a pleasure. I'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Promise their pastures are green. Just one
Hey, thanks for listening. Question for you. Are you struggling to move your music journey forward? I can help. If not personally, then by referring you to the next best available resources. Schedule a free 15-minute call with me to find out if I can indeed help you. It's easy. Just visit unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to schedule your call today. Look for links to just about everything covered in this episode in the show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. This episode was powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and ebooks just about everywhere you can find them. It's also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy and would love it even more if you left a review. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.